God, everybody. I'm very lucky to speak to the man Uncivilized, which he greatly accepts as the person that he is, Traver Boehm. Mate, I start off with what did you do last weekend? So tell us all what you did last weekend.
I surfed my brains out last weekend. I was in a spot called Nosara, Costa Rica, which is maybe 2 hours south of me, and this beautiful swell rolled in. So essentially, I just geared my life around writing. Shot a little bit of video, but mostly it was just prep for surf, recover from surf. I think I went to one yoga class and realized how goddamn hard it was, and was like, enough of this. So mostly, yeah, I was just surfing and writing.
Lovely. So the difficulty of yoga was the heat or just yoga?
Just yoga. I went to this class, right? And here's the deal. It was in this beautiful setting, right? Like Nosara has a lot of yoga, like in an outdoor pagoda. There's like 40 people. And the woman walks up to the front and goes, "Thank you so much for coming. This will be a 2-hour class."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. The brochure didn't say anything about 2 hours of yoga. And at like this 47-minute mark, I think like my left butt cheek just cramped. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And everywhere I looked, people had no problems. It was like, oh, twist yourself in a pretzel and then touch your ear with your left toe. And I'm pretty flexible, after years of athletics and martial arts, but man, this was just not my forte.
Yeah, if anyone wants to say that yoga's for pussies, they should just bloody try to do it. I'm a bit infrequent of late, and I keep trying to do things like Swan or even the other day, I think it's called a bow. I've got this book for my daughter that it's got a bunch of poses in it, and bow's one of them. And I was like, oh, you just do this, and I was just like in the middle of my back, like
yeah. Just do this. It looks so easy. Just reach back and grab your foot and bring it forward. Yeah. Not for pussies at all.
Mate, if you've been on a friend of mine, Chris Tesman's podcast, he said a couple of times, "Uncomfortable is okay," which is a hell of a title for a podcast because there's not enough of that around. And he messaged me and said, "Mate, I've got the perfect book for you." I'm like, "No, whatever, cool, great," and I get it, and I've got it here beside me, and it shows up, and there's this gorilla on front, and man Uncivilized. They didn't even tell me the title or anything. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then started flicking through, and it's easily digestible. I read it in a week. And I was like, holy fuck, that's quite good. Chris, you were right. Why write a book?
Thank you.
Why write a book, man? Like, I guess it comes with the title, Man Uncivilized, but why bother?
Yeah. This book came out of me, right? And this is how I write. I wrote my first book, a book called Today I Rise, in about 4 weeks. And my buddy challenged me. This is what happens. My buddy challenged me, said, write 65 individual letters to the you who woke up 5 years ago and realized your wife was leaving and your life was essentially going to be different from that point on. And up until that point, I was like, didn't have much to do. I just finished a year-long project. I was like living in this gorgeous house in the Hamptons that I didn't have to pay rent at. I was just kind of fucking off. And he told me that, and boom, I just wrote for 5-6 straight weeks, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That was all I did. And so when this came around, the idea was the same. I had been writing a lot on social media, talking to men, building this idea of Man Uncivilized and the Uncivilized movement. And I kept getting asked by guys, like, where else can we find this other than your social media? And I was like, nowhere. In the back of my head, there's a book. And I had this vision, Ryan, of guys holding it, like literally holding it in their hands and saying, okay, if I'm not on the internet, I want to get this information, but I want to do it privately. Because this is, for men, the idea that we need to be different as men is not something we publicize. But in our private time, where can I get them a resource? And the same question got posed. I had a friend say, I bet you can't write it in 6 weeks. I was like, oh, fuck, okay, now I got to do it. And so I literally locked myself in a house, and I think I felt it coming. And this is how I write. Like, it's like, and then boom, my whole life got taken over by writing that book. True story. At the end of it, at the end of that like 6-week period, I flew to New York City to see a friend. And I have no history of mental illness. I have pretty stable grounding. I spent a month in a dark room. Like, I'm good generally in life. And I was walking down the street with him, and I stopped him and said, I think I need to go to the hospital. He was like, "You okay? Like, what's going on?" I was like, "There's something wrong with my head." And he looked at me very seriously, like, what's going on with you? I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, my head is fucked right now. I can't think. I can't concentrate. I actually feel like I'm losing my mind." He goes, and he knew what I'd done. He knew about the writing. He's like, "When was the last time you were in a gym?" Like, "Oh, like 2 months ago." He's like, "When was the last time you talked to someone in person other than me or the flight attendant?" I was like, "Oh, like 2 months ago." He goes, "Come with me." And he brought me to his building. We worked out hard for like 90 minutes, went upstairs, had dinner with him and his wife and kids. And I was like, "I'm good. I don't need to go to the hospital." But just, it was all that focus and all of this stuff just pouring out of me daily, you know? And so why write it? I don't feel like I have a choice when it comes to books. This is just what happens to me. I'll wake up some mornings and I know it's coming. So I'll like pace my apartment or wherever I am. And there's like words in my head and I can't think straight. And then I'll sit down and just, and something will come out and I'll feel great. I'll go do some other shit and come back and read it and have no memory of writing the words. And so that was the same process. I've read this book 8 times. I've been like, holy shit, I have no recollection of writing that. Or remembering kind of being in a trance or being like, you know, in a different space when I write. So that's why. And it's necessary, right? Like, to me, this was necessary. It couldn't just be articles in the New York Times. It couldn't just be an Instagram page that you can just scroll past and then on to the next piece of information and on and on and on. I wanted something solid. In order to create a shift in culture, which is what I'm after, there has to be a central piece, right? Like, I jokingly said, this is the Bible of my movement. I'm not trying to create a religion, but every great movement, every great idea has some document or some thing that people can return to and go, yeah, right, it's in the ethos. That's why I wrote the ethos. Like, if you stick to these 12 principles, this is it. It's like my 12 commandments. Do this and everything else follows forward. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's why I wrote the book.
Mate, that's the beauty of podcast. You can talk for as long as you want. Yeah. Bit like writing a book, I guess, sort of. Now you got to be succinct.
No, you got to be succinct. Trust me.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of your book. It is sensationally succinct. As I said, I managed to get through it in a week, just sort of reading in the evenings, and even in myself, I've noticed a gigantic shift. Subconsciously. Probably the last 2 months or so, I've been struggling to get up to my alarm and snoozing a bunch. That hasn't happened, and then on top of that, timings are both a wonderful and a horrible thing. Speaking of timing, I lost my grandfather yesterday, but it's all right. It's all right. The timing of coming across your book and coming across your social media, and then coming across your February challenge to do 34 burpees a day, and we've had a little bit of back and forth. That is a good number to find a very dark place before you get. Or it doesn't have to be get started each day, but it's a good time to do it. Why do you spoke about writing the book as well being a challenge? Why do you sort of believe in challenges and sign yourself up to challenges?
Right, there's something about the male animal that with challenge we thrive. Without challenge, like, we wilt. And I feel that exponentially in myself. That if I'm not chewing on something, if I don't have a big project, then I get lost. I get depressed. I get anxious. I don't understand why I'm here. I just get this existential feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing. And perhaps that stems from being single and not having kids. At my age, most people focus on their children, and their children are the project. But I also think it's very healthy even for men who do have children and do have partners to also have something that's difficult, right? We need something I wrote in the book, like we're like German shepherds, right? Like give us something to chew on and we're good. We need that. We actually need that, especially men. I remember reading this thing in college. It was on this famous or a very well-known college water polo coach in California. And he said,
what uni?
This was the University, UC Irvine in California.
It might still be the same guy, but we've had a story about it. UC Berkeley water polo coach. So carry on.
Yeah,
sorry.
That kind of, these guys understand guys. And he would say, like, if I don't kick the shit out of them 6 days a week in practice, they're going to go get in trouble. This is what they do. And he said, I remember he got flack for it because it was in, it was in a major magazine at the time. And he said, the women's team doesn't have that problem. I don't need to do this with them. We can drill more. The guys, like, I need them crawling out of the pool and crawling back in the locker room. Otherwise, they'll get arrested. And so, and I think it's something that drives people to a sport like that as well. It's a very violent, aggressive sport. But for men, I think it taps back into this. It's in our DNA, man, that not that long ago, we didn't know where we were going to get food. We didn't know if something was going to kill us. We were still trying to get across country to new lands. We were seeking adventure. We were trying to climb mountains. We were doing all of this stuff before social media came along and just showed us pictures of it and said, oh, here's a picture of someone climbing a mountain. Now you feel 1% like you do it, but 99% a little bummed that you're not doing it. And you may get 1,000 of those interactions a day. So I find that when men have a communal challenge, right? Like, so with the challenge, with the burpee challenge, it's all the guys in the Uncivilized Nation. It's actually a bunch of other people on social media. It's even a bunch of women who have joined it. But the fact that we all know we're suffering together builds this silent camaraderie, or even not so silent, but this under the surface camaraderie. And I find that when I start the day with 34 burpees or whatever it is, last month I challenged the guys to each make an extra $500 outside of their normal income. And it's just like, hey, here's something that you don't know how to do yet. Do it. Try it. Fail at it. Learn something. With the burpees, it's, hey, this is going to be the same. You're going to grind. You got to learn how to grind. There's going to be days when you're sick, days when you didn't sleep, days when you just don't feel good, days when you're tired. That's more about, like, let's just do some hard shit. You know, so much of what I see societally in the West, let's just call it, unless there's calamity or unless there's tragedy or unless there's natural disaster, our lives are really cushy. Right? And so unless we actually go out and seek challenge, we self-destruct. Right? I'm here in Costa Rica. If you saw what I posted a picture of or a video of a wave this morning. And I came here to find this one wave, which is terrifying. It's massive. It's huge. There's not a lot of people around. There's no services here. If I get hurt, I'm fucked. I have to walk a half an hour to get there. I didn't know how to get there yesterday. I just wandered through fields. It was like, where the hell is this place? And all night thought about it. And all morning have thought about it. And I just got goosebumps. I know what time I'm going because of the tide. Like, I need that shit. Otherwise, I start drinking again. Otherwise, I smoke dope. Otherwise, I'm looking at porn. Otherwise, I'm trying to fuck 5 women in a day. Otherwise, I'm just not okay in the world. And I think there's a certain percentage of men, usually high achievers, guys who are striving, who have that same drive, who have that same fire in their bellies. And if they don't, it's often because these are men. If it's not that group of men, it's men who have had that fire extinguished, who have sat in a cubicle for so long, who think that, you know, a shitty relationship is okay, who go, well, not me. I'm not in good shape. I'm over 30. It's, my athletic career is done. When I watch when the spark gets lit in those guys, they fucking go on a tear. And their whole lives change. Like guys find, you've seen it, like guys find triathlons, guys find kite surfing, guys find something and they're like, oh. And what happens downstream? Their whole lives change. How they eat changes. They start doing yoga. They start stretching. They start watching videos and getting instruction and hiring coaches. And it's like, they engage in life more fully.
Yeah, start meditating, start doing the little 1%ers, eh? Yeah,
exactly.
Mate, geez, there's a lot there. In terms of the challenge of it, that's where I was going. I remember now. Stupid video. You're saying about, say, the likes of triathlon, or in my case, going hunting, which is, can be a weekend, can be a morning if you're super lucky. But you've written a post, and I'm pretty sure it's in the book as well, that freedom isn't free. And the image you've got on the internet is of the Fairbanks bus from Into the Wild. Now, I read that book at the end of last year. It's my girlfriend's, one of her favorites. And we've watched the film before. But yeah, read that book. And yeah, that story is, that's what you've got in the book. The pull and the push. Like, and hunting is definitely, like, I had 4 days in the bush the other week, and coming back to civilization was super weird and super crazy. What do you, like, it probably just speaks to what you were saying before. It's only about 100 years ago or so that was pretty common to strive and adventure and persevere. But for you, in your heart, what do you sort of feel about adventure versus civilization? Or uncivilization?
It's a conundrum, right, Ryan? Like, it's a conundrum. I also love the fact I have air conditioning here.
Yeah.
And if someone said, hey, go to Costa Rica, sleep in a tent, kill your own food, and there's this medium. And I've done stuff like that. I've gone for the full extreme of a month of survival school or whatever it is. So I think that it's not about leaving civilization fully. If that's what, Into the Wild was, that crazy story of, I'm out. I'm completely checking out. And I understand why people do that. They look at civilization. They look at like the patterns of insanity. Wow, you've given 5 years of your life, actual 5 years of your life, working 18 hours a day in a building, just so that you can drive a car that has a different hood ornament on it than mine. That is the actual definition of insanity, right? If we explain that to a child of like, hey, you're going to give up your 20s for that, right? But yet people do it. And I'm not saying that I'm against capitalism. I'm not saying that I'm against working hard to provide for your family, or that you want to strive, or that I want a fucking G-Wagon. I've got a picture of a G-Wagon on my phone. But I'm going to go about getting it in a different way. And if someone said, here's how you get it. You go back to school, you get a law degree, and you work for a law firm for the next 8 years, and they'll give you one. Here's what it's going to cost you: your health, your relationship, your sense of the world, going outside, nature, who you are as a person. I'm like, go fuck yourselves. It's not worth it. And so adventure versus civilization, right? We need this. We need the wild. We need it. We need the unknown. We need to be removed from society and civilization often so that we can actually look at it objectively.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we are the fish that doesn't know what water is, right? I remember, God, this was in my early 20s, Ryan. I did this crazy, I was a bodyguard at the time. And I went on this 6-month trip with a client. And he was all over the Caribbean. And granted, he was a billionaire, so we stayed in some fabulous places and lived on yachts. But the thing about it was wild. It was pure freedom. He was a surfer and a diver, so everywhere he went, I went. And I made about 40 grand on that trip. At the time, was a ton of money, right? I was 25 years old, and I had that in cash when I got back. It was like, here's $40,000. And I came back to LA, and I remember thinking, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this money, and I'm just going to travel the world for 2 years. I'm just going to adventure, seek, learn, like feel, like get into the meat of the world. And it was probably 3 weeks later in Los Angeles, I was looking at BMWs. 3 weeks. That's how long it took civilization to like reprogram me back to 2 years of adventure versus, and I had a great car and I didn't buy the BMW, but I was looking at it. And I remember that moment being like, they've got me back, right? Like I'm back in the matrix. I'm back in the fold. I remember I did a month in survival school in Utah, which was, a knife, a water bottle, a blanket, and a compass for 28 days, right? Insanity, like absolute, pure and uncivilized, as wild as can be. And I came out of that and I was living with this woman in New Mexico. And I remember us driving back. We went to the gym maybe 3-4 days after I got out of it. And we were driving back to her house. And I remember picking up my phone and saying, this is the magic moment. I'm not re-addicted to my phone yet. I'm still in this sweet spot where I left my phone in the car while we worked out and yada, yada. And it was maybe 4 days later that I pulled up to a stop sign and I remember checking it. And then it was like stoplight, checking it. It was like, fuck, they got me again. I'm back in the matrix. Damn you, AT&T. Damn you, Steve Jobs.
Damn you, Steve Jobs. Gosh, yeah.
Right? But yet you and I are now conversing because of social media, and we're conversing on Zoom, and we're conversing in separate continents. So it's the duality is what I really want to speak to in men, of saying it's the yes and. Like, yes, I imagine you've bought stuff at supermarkets before, but yet you're willing to go out for 4 days in the bush, rewild yourself, go into something that's as primal gets, have a relationship with your own food, risk health, risk injury, and provide for your family in the most natural way that men know how. That's the duality, I think, that leads to health. That's the duality that leads to your heart being open and your soul thriving. Right? I imagine that, and I'm just going to make this up, that a lot of people who live that way aren't on antidepressants. They're not on anti-anxiety medicine. And they actually look at microwave food and go, this isn't fucking food. Right? And the choices that you make aren't based off of like, oh, this is a $5,000 t-shirt because it has some other dude's name on the front, even though it's worth $8 and was made by a kid in China. Right? You don't buy in that deeply to the things that fuck us up as humans, and especially fuck us up as men.
Right. There's plenty of that. I was talking with a guy. He lives in Kentucky, but he's involved with a fitness company called Sorenix, and they've just finished off. You're talking about survival camp. They've just finished off their winter strong process, and they were doing sort of jumping in the freezing cold lake and sort of archery challenge through the woods and sort of lift, run, shoot sort of competitions, that sort of stuff. Lots of community-based things, good fires and stuff. And he'd been on a hunt, and Ryan Mickler had been there, and he basically said, I don't want to be Ryan Mickler because the community. He has to. Well, he doesn't have to do anything, but it's this circumstance where he's posting every day, and it's almost like the community needs that. You said the book sort of creates an ethos for your community that you've created. Why do you think, like the likes of Ryan, and I've had the guys on from a couple of guys from Every Man on. There's guys in San Francisco called Unshakable Man who are sort of an out branch of that. Why do you think that right now, and we're 2020 now, that there's this return to manhood, and it's probably the pendulum swinging back in some sort of way, but what are what's the feedback to you?
You mean why now?
Yeah, why now? Yeah, exactly. That's a great question.
I think it's a combination of social events that, one, the advent of social media. So we got to see the best and the worst. We got to see someone like the Kardashians, who are literally worthless human beings, become industry leaders of opinion, of social change. Like, we saw the power of that.
Breaking the internet.
What's that? Yeah, literally breaking the internet. We saw, okay, things are so backwards now that someone who provides no value to society can hold one of the highest positions in society. And this isn't government. This is just social media. And I think internally, so many humans, men and women, went, the system's a little bit backwards now. Things are a little bit off. This doesn't make sense. Now, if we speak directly to men, we also saw the pendulum swing to the super soft, nice guy side, right? The sensitive new age, like, hey, this is what we need from men. We saw this huge push after Me Too. So Me Too was also a massive contributing factor to this. And I'm really glad that Me Too happened. I'm not against Me Too. Me Too shone the light on male behavior and called into question male behavior. And a number of men, especially in the US, went, why do we do that? Why are we the ways that we are? And I think that also collided with so many of the very apparent health numbers, suicide numbers, depression numbers, where men were actually looking around and going, I know guys killing themselves. I know guys on antidepressants. My friends are involved here. It became personal. And it became so widespread that we looked at it and went, with this confluence of events, I just got chills, man. With this confluence of events, what are we doing to contribute to it? Like the questions started popping into the conversation. And I think when the questions popped into the conversation, we as men also realized there was this collective pop of the consciousness that said, we've been sold a false bill of goods. Mm-hmm. So many of us have gotten divorced. So many of us have watched our fathers get divorced. So many of us have friends who are now living lives of hell because of divorce, because of health issues, because of getting fired from jobs, realizing, wow, this doesn't work. Like I remember as a teenager, one of my good friend's dads quit his account. This guy would go, one of my best friend's dads would go into New York City every day for 20 years to work. So he would take the train an hour and a half. He would work in New York City. He'd take the train out an hour and a half. He'd see his kids for like 45 minutes at night, Monday through Friday. And then, Saturday was this, Sunday was to prepare for the next week. And I remember my friend saying, yeah, my dad quit his job and he's going to be a carpenter now. And talking to him and a guy being like, I've never been happier. Mm-hmm. I get to see my kids every day. Yeah. Do we make less money? Definitely. But you know what? I was like, the money was fueling this. It was like this horrible cycle of, I need the money to go to therapy. I need the car. It was like, wait a minute, the system's broken. And so I think, the long story to a short question, social media gave us the view of so many different ways of living. So we got to see Orion Mickler, right? We got to see people living in tiny houses. Mm-hmm. We got to follow people who were living in their trucks and living and just be like, but my life's an adventure. We got to see all of these things that were previously unavailable to us or seemed so distant and foreign. And then bam, wow, what if I lived that way? I now can live that way. I think too, the advent of the internet allowed a lot of us to work in ways that didn't involve putting a suit and tie on and going and sitting in an office. So all of those events kind of colliding together at the same time, I think really is the why now, right? I bet you my dad's generation, a lot of them were unhappy, but they didn't have a choice. It's like, this is what you do for work. You don't get to make money from the beach in Costa Rica on a laptop, right? There's no such thing as a social following. No one's buying your shit. If you publish a book, you go to one of the 8 major publishers. If not, no one reads your book. Your book doesn't exist. So the opportunity met the growing awareness that how we're doing things isn't working. And we're still, right? I think we're still so far behind the curve. Right? Like depression numbers, suicide. I look at suicide numbers all the time and they're massive. They're absolutely massive. And that's indicative of a broken society or broken aspects of society.
Yeah. And we've had a few guys on here talk about it and just that sort of place where you've lost your worth is at zero is is pretty incredible to hear, and yeah, it's a simple but a difficult simple answer but difficult answer. It's like one of those things that like it's simple but not easy, and unfortunately, as you say, the numbers keep doing this, and you keep getting that thing that, you know, the straw that breaks the camel's back keeps happening, and I guess that's sort of speaks a little bit to what you're talking about, being responsible to someone, having a job that provides security, you know, pays for the car, pays for the house, pays for the therapy, or living that life with purpose, and taking the risk, and being on the adventure. And the societal talk, like, you know, for me it took 7 freaking years of uni, and I don't know about thankfully, but you know, I played rugby, I enjoyed it, that meant freedom's not free. I didn't get the A+, but I got through, and now I, you know, again, I'm on the grind of earning a salary, and I guess that's probably what drives this podcast a little bit, is finding an outlet to be creative, to do stuff. And same, going back to what you were talking about writing, you know, every now and again I'll get that idea in my head, and I've got one right now to write a blog, write an article, and a bit like yourself, I sort of go into a trance and get it out, and then I hand it off to my partner and say, can you make sure this makes sense? Did you have an editor or somebody to, you know, whip it into shape? Because it's a beautiful shape.
And let me chat or speak to the idea too, that there's nothing wrong with working for someone. There's nothing wrong with the 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with providing for your family in a conventional manner. There's nothing wrong with it at all if it feeds your soul. I know a lot of guys that love what they do. And what they do is, quote, civilized, right? Like, they work in offices, they show up every day, they lead it, they love it. And it's like beautiful. That feeds your soul. And I had the same thing. I ran my own business for a number of years, and it was the blogging to speak to it. Like, I had to write a daily blog for a gym that I owned. And that started to wake me up more and make me feel more alive, and like interest me more so than teaching kettlebell swings did, and teaching pull-ups, even though that's what I loved at the beginning. So to answer your question about writing, I wrote for 6 years. Every single day I had to write a blog. And so that got in my head. And then suddenly, maybe a year or two in, the blog got picked up by a magazine, and they contacted me and said, hey, we want you to write for us. And then I had my first editor. And the editor was this amazing woman who wouldn't just like get my article, edit it, and publish it. She would ask me all these questions and make me go back and change it. Like, are you sure this is what you want to say? This doesn't really make sense here. What if you rewrote this in a different manner? Does this really need to be here? Stuff like that. So she taught me to slim it down. So if you look at the book, it's essentially like 62 blog posts. Right. And also I realized that is the way that so many people can consume information, in these short bite-sized chapters. But, you know, one thing I'd love to bring up, have you read the book Tribe or Tribes by Sebastian Junger?
I was thinking about that just before when you were speaking.
And how, for those of you that haven't read it, Sebastian Junger is an amazing war correspondent. He wrote The Perfect Storm, but in this particular book, he goes back and looks at depression rates, anxiety rates, happiness levels, etc., in and around major conflict and things like 9/11, major natural calamities, etc., and how happier people are when they're engaging in real life, because real life isn't, oh my God, let's see what's on TV or what politician is lying to us. It's let's band together and see who has food. Let's rebuild the houses. Let's like actual real life shit. And so when we speak to, you know, where is the call for adventure? What do you need to do? Or what about those guys who have 4 kids in private school and 2 mortgages and an ex-wife? Like, how do you do this? You have to engage in something that lights you the fuck up. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's 45 minutes of guitar when you get home, or as you said, like writing that damn article or starting your own podcast. Right? I have a good friend who's a full-time cop who's got a podcast. He's like, the podcast keeps me sane. He makes like $9 a month off the podcast. And he's stoked because it's like, it's in the black, right? And for a lot of people, like this may be your sanity. It may be this creative outlet that you get. And that's okay too. So I hope guys hear this and go, yeah, what could I do? What's this little project? What's this thing I can tinker with? Right? Like what's the car in the garage that turns into a 5-year project, right? The 67 Mustang or whatever it is. That we as men go, okay, I have my obligations and now let me engage with freedom. The masculine craves freedom. We fucking love freedom. And yet too much freedom and we lose our minds. Not enough freedom and we feel like caged animals. So we have to dose this and prescribe it to ourselves and look at our own reactions. Like, do I feel healthy? Do I not feel healthy? Am I alive? Am I depressed? And I'm not talking about deep clinical stuff that people need to go get actual help for. But if you've been run down and bummed out for a month, ask yourself, what would light me up? What does light me up? And you and I know nature. Like, how disconnected are we as a society from nature? Get out in nature. And I have a teacher that's like 20 days in the woods will solve most problems. If it doesn't kill you. But like the idea of like 20 days in nature and pretty much like all the other shit you're worried about kind of goes away. Right? What are your, go ahead.
No.
I was like, carrying on, like, what are your intimate relationships like? Are you having authentic, raw, honest, wild conversations with your partner, with your best friends? Are you guys just keeping it surface level? What about your health? What are you eating? Are you like actually procuring your own? Are you engaged with your own food? Do you cook your own food? Do you know where it comes from? Have you gone to the farmer's market and shaken the dude's hand? And like, thanks for the carrots, John. Or are you at like Whole Foods being like, I have no fucking idea. These came from Argentina. They were shipped like 7 different countries and frozen and unfrozen, but whatever. I don't care what I put in my body. And like, what are you feeding your mind? You're just sitting there on YouTube watching stupid shit all day? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading books? Are you engaging with like, fuck? It's just like, I just sometimes just want to shake people and shake myself. So just don't think that there aren't days where I'm like, man, I've caught the depression. And then be like, wait a minute. Yesterday I had 2 Snickers. I stayed indoors and watched Netflix and I haven't talked to anybody. Okay. Get outside, go eat some real food, go do 34 burpees, call a friend. Oh, that's right. Life's amazing. Fucking get on it.
Yeah. That speaks to a bit of a Tim Ferriss thing, you know, and he's someone that nearly did bloody commit suicide. And we never would have had all of these gems, but what does he say? Like, are you hungry and have you done exercise? That's like your first 2 questions.
Right? Like, we forget that we're still animals. We're still the human animal. These things, man, they are the single greatest blessing I know and the single greatest curse. Because now we're connected to everybody, but not intimately. It's like we're junk fooding the human experience. There's no nutrition over WhatsApp. There's no nutrition sitting there texting each other. Right? It's like eating McDonald's. Like, yeah, my stomach's full, but I actually have 0 nutrients in me right now. And yet we can use, and for those of you that are wondering what I'm talking about, I held up my cell phone. We can use this to connect with people and then go see them. We can use this to find surf breaks and then go there and surf the damn wave. We can do this to find communities of hunters, of triathletes, of people that are communal, of our tribe, of connecting with actual humans.
Oh yeah. Now, and the beautiful thing about your cell phone as well is it does have the tools to make it less appealing. So, mine is bright red at the moment. It used to be grey, but the white was too white, and then my mate was like, "Hey, change it to color filters and swing it all the way to the red." And the grey was good, but red, where you can't even see those weird and wonderful colors that have got filters applied is a powerful little tool. And like you're saying about WhatsApp, getting a notification, off goes your sympathetic nervous system. And as an optometrist, I'm super lucky to get the insight into the amount of people whose sympathetic nervous system is absolutely jacked up. So we do this most simple test, and you see it in most movies. If someone gets hit in the head or anything, they shine a light in their eye. And so two things you check is you check that the two are still working, that the wiring's still connected. And then the other thing, and people think it's counterintuitive because they're there to come and see, and I'm shining bright lights in their eye, making them not be able to see. But you hold the light on someone's eye, and you see it in their body language anyway. They're pretty jacked up and nervous. But you hold it there, the pupil constricts, and then bang, back open it goes. Whereas it should stay closed for like 10 seconds or so. It's just in the society, and I hope you're still there, Traver. You back? Gone? No. I'll just ramble. In the society, we're so jacked up, and I see that every day, and I just get that pleasure of well, not pleasure. It's quite hard work, but yeah, I get that situation where I get to see what this world's doing to us, and it's the same with health. You know. I was going on a big rant about the sympathetic nervous system and how I see
the eyes.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, like people that they pop, you said something like they pop.
Oh yeah. So that's what happens. You shine the light in, and the pupils pop straight back, and they should stay open for 10 seconds. And yeah, that's so. What I was saying is, I have it in my face every day what the world's doing to us. You know, I have to ask everybody, you know, what medications are you on, and they look at me weird, sort of like, why do you want to know that? And it's like, well. Right. The eyes are part of your body. They manifest all that shit. It comes up, you know, and that's the most obvious one. Like you're saying, you know, dinner plate pupils of someone that's scared and frightened. Oh, they're out there everywhere. We often joke that maybe the person's attracted to us, but that's. I don't.
Eyes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's a lot of guys, so yeah. No, the medication thing and the sort of the health thing in your face, it sort of almost makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you look at your own future. I guess it kind of, you know, I know my family history and what's, you know, out to get me, and it's not much, but seeing that in front of your face every day, the lifestyle conditions, the you know, 20-year disc belly and that sort of stuff. It's just kind of like shit. You know, it's good. It's in your face here. I don't want to do that. What do I have to do today to move forward? Do you feel the same? You know, coming from a gym environment, we trying to help people. Does that sort of drive you forward as well? You look around and kind of go, shit, I don't want that.
Yeah, for sure. I look at, you know, the reason I named the whole thing Uncivilized was I felt like civilization was like a machine, and that you got put in one end and spat out the other end. And how you got spat out the other end was sick, broke, uninspired, and then dead. And it just felt like if I didn't want to get spat out of anything that way, then I had to remove myself from the machine. I had to do what everyone else wasn't doing. And be careful of the trap of the collective but everybody eats this way. But everybody, I don't drink. I stopped drinking 5 years ago, but everybody drinks. Well, but why does everybody do all these things that they're doing? What's the default setting that we're falling back into that we're not examining? Right? I have no issues at all with alcohol. I don't care if people drink. I chose not to because I looked at it and went, why am I drinking? Why do I drink? What's the benefit of this? Is this helping my life? And what's the cost of this? And again, I don't want people to hear this about alcohol and freak out and then turn their brains off. But alcohol is one of the few drugs that we have to explain to people why we don't do. Like I've never walked into a party and had everyone be like, hey, do you want some heroin? And they'll be like, no, I don't really do heroin. And they go, oh, I don't really trust the guy who doesn't do heroin. But I've walked into parties and have been like, no, thanks, I don't drink. And have someone go like, I don't trust a man who doesn't drink. Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Come here, tell me why. And so again, if we take alcohol out of the equation, but we look at why don't you do the things that we all do? That's a more interesting question, because I throw it back to people and go, why do you do the things that everybody else does? Have you stopped for a minute and examined it? Have you added consciousness to the equation and gone, wow, I don't know why. I've just been following this track, right? I got out of high school, I went to college. I got out of college, I went to grad school. I got out of grad school, I got married. I got married, I wanted to have a kid. Well, all these things. And I went, wait a minute. How much of that was my own decision, or how much of that was just me kind of on the societal conveyor belt that leads to the place of broke, sick, uninspired, and dead? And then the sixth, since you asked, I'm sorry, I just say, on the flip side of that, right, is walk through an airport. I used to joke people, go to Vegas. And it's like, that's what the collective American looks like. You know, it may be different in New Zealand, but the average American is 60 to 80 pounds overweight on 4+ medications, right? It's shocking. And we go, well, wait a minute, how far are you walking every day? When was the last time you cooked your own meal? How do you sleep at night? How do you start your day? How engaged are you with other people? It's not fucking rocket science. Right? I'm not asking them to do nuclear physics. I'm like, do you walk? Do you eat? Do you meditate? Do you write for 5 minutes a day? Like, start there. And so, does it scare me? I mean, I think I've looked enough at the picture and removed myself far enough from it. But right, it doesn't mean that the pull isn't there. Right? It doesn't mean that ever goes away. The comfortable life, the easy life, you know what, I'll just eat McDonald's all day and check out, right? So it's this real engagement with, how do you want to live? What do you want the outcome to be a year from now? Like, if you look in the mirror, if I take a snapshot of everybody's life, like an actual snapshot, go, this is the collection of decisions that you make daily, for the most part. Right? If you got hit by a car yesterday, then there's an acute situation. But over the long term, your life is the accumulation of decisions, habits, and patterns that you make daily. So if you want to change one of them, if you want to change that snapshot, change the habits and patterns. And again, I'm not picking on alcohol, but when I quit drinking, so much of my life changed. Who I hang out with, what I do on weekends, what I do when I walk into a social event, what I do when I'm alone. And so I wanted a radically different outcome. So I chose to do something radically different, which was give up alcohol. Same thing when people go to grad school or go to college. You want that outcome, which is the degree, which is 4 years of knowledge. Every day you go to class. On weekends, you're studying, you're locked in the library, you're reading books, you're blah, blah, blah. You're putting a ton of action and energy into an outcome. So for guys listening to this, if you want a different outcome, you got to put the massive amounts of energy, time, and focus into the habits and patterns that will create that outcome. So yeah, man, I think it drives me insane. I don't understand. Like, I get it, but I don't understand how we as a species can say, wow, we're so off track that this is how we're living. And this is okay. It's okay with everybody. We collectively got together and we're like, this is fine. It's okay. Oh, you're on 6 medications to get through the day and you're 38 years old and there's really nothing acutely wrong with you? Fuck that. No way. And you could literally get off all of them with a 2-mile walk and a plant-based diet. That's it. That's the only requirements. That's it. Change how you eat and go for a walk every day. Holy shit. Why are we, then it calls in, I don't want to go conspiracy theory on you, but what are the forces that are engaging and keeping you that way, and who is benefiting from it? Right? A good friend of mine's an attorney, and I remember when I first opened the gym, he goes, any problem you see, follow the money. Follow the money. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Okay. Who's making money off people being sick? Who's making money off people not feeling inspired? What are we selling people every day so that they feel good for 15 minutes so that they forget that they feel like shit for the other 8 hours of the day? Mm-hmm. Right? That, to me, that's the paradigm. It's the civilized paradigm. It's the matrix.
Yeah, yeah. You were saying, you don't know about what it's like here, and I was shaking my head. I immediately thought of Bill Burr's special when he he's in the recording that in London, and he goes, you guys are pretty fucking fat too. and he's that show is definitely uncivilized mode. And you were saying about the things that we're not doing or whatever. For example, I'm not drinking, or I'm not gonna drink for this, or whatever. It's also a little bit the same of like fasting, or hey, what's your morning routine? I get up after 5 snoozes of my alarm and grab a coffee, run out the door, shout at my kids, say goodbye, and then I get home late, have a beer, watch the TV, eat the food, go to bed. It's like I get home and play with my child, and do some juggling or handstands. What are you doing all that for? And it's just like there's little paradigm shifts along the way, like you say, that keep you out of this system, I guess. Do you think that that's another sort of little tool that can be attained from this?
100%. It's such a loaded word, but it's consciousness. Are you conscious of what you're doing and not doing? To me, the person that gets up at after the 5th time the alarm goes off, has a cup of coffee out the door as they yell at their kids, goes to work, comes home, cracks a beer, sits on the couch, zones out until it's time to go to sleep and do it all over again, is unconscious. They're asleep to the power that they have to make change in their lives. Hear that again. They're asleep to the actual power. It's like, oh, I can't change that. Yes, you can. You just have to make small daily decisions to live differently. Right? I had this client. It was a crazy story, Ryan. When they hired me, it was a couple. They were $25,000 in debt. And I asked the woman, like, well, what did you, she said, sorry, she came on a call and was like, oh, I'm super tired. I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning watching YouTube on the TV last night in bed. And I went, how many TVs do you guys have in your house? She said, we have 5. We have one in the bedroom, one in the living room, and then each of the 3 kids has a TV in their room.
It's $25K.
And I went, okay, all right. First of all, I'm going to take a deep breath and calm myself the fuck down before I unload on you. Here's what you're going to do. 1, you're going to sell every goddamn television in the house. You're going to take the money and you're going to pay it off on the debt. 2, you're going to go get a library card. And at night, you're going to read books on personal finance, on marketing, on like what are you doing? How unconscious are you and when she hired me, she's like, we're stuck. We've tried everything. Like, no, you haven't. You're staring the basics in the face. If you have a TV in your bedroom, you're unconscious. Right? So even when you said, like, well, what if I made a small change? I would challenge everybody listening to this. Unplug your TV for a week and just see what happens. Just see what happens. Watch what happens to your nervous system. Watch what happens to your body when you come home and go, oh, maybe I'll crack a book. Maybe I'll read a magazine. Maybe I'll make a phone call. Maybe I'll go talk to someone. Mm-hmm. And then what happens on day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, where you're like, oh my God, I spend 4 hours a day on watching shit, eating junk food information to my brain. Mm-hmm. Right? So it doesn't have to be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go run a marathon. I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. I'm going to kill my own food. I'm going to deadlift 500 pounds. It's unplug your TV. Go buy some vegetables. Yeah. Sit and meditate. Try to meditate for 5 minutes a day. 5 fucking minutes. And watch your brain explode on minute 3. I'm like, man, as a human, I can't sit alone in a room with my own thoughts for 300 seconds. That to me is a profound canary in the coal mine. Something ain't right. Shit. Now, how do I reorganize my daily life so that I am okay sitting for an hour in meditation? I've sat for 12 hours in meditation, sat in a month in a pitch black room. You're far more capable of things than you think you are, but it's like, it's death by 1,000 cuts, Ryan. That's how I view the civilized world. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's a little bit of shitty food, a little bit of shitty conversation, a little bit of shitty habit that leads to this being the new normal, right? Think of how many people you know, just to go back to health, are on pain medication for stuff that is diet related. Like, oh, my knees ache. I'm like, well, what's your diet like? Well, you realize that you don't have to take Advil every day. If you just ate a little bit better and you'd be less inflamed, and then your knee pain would go away. It's
yeah. I had that.
Advil isn't a supplement.
No, I had that the other day. Like, type 2 diabetic. She'd been doing keto, lost like 10 kgs or so. And she was like, "Oh, my knees don't hurt anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit." And Gary Ficke, who we've had on this podcast, for 2 years wasn't allowed to talk about nutrition. Now I don't know who I'd trust, but an orthopedic surgeon who's cutting people's limbs off, I'd be pretty trusting of him. But the amount of people that he then didn't have to cut their limbs off or do their knee surgery for, one, because they'd lost 20 kgs by cutting out the crap and doing that. And again, you're sort of saying follow the money. And even when it comes to the sort of plant-based movement, there's doing it properly. That's loaded, but I guess doing it properly, or there's buying your fake slop that's got a slapped a plant-based on it. Like, come on, guys. Right. Like there's ways of doing stuff, and there's, like you say, going on the civilized train, like, oh, I'm saving the planet. Well, that fucking thing came from an industry and got driven all across the world with ingredients that came from all across the world. Or, as like you say, go to the farmer's market and say, "Thanks, John, for the carrots." Exactly. from down the road. Like,
yeah, and create a relationship with John. So we actually go back to, I think when you brought it up a little while ago, of this return almost to natural living. And I think it just is the way, because the pendulum swung so far. You have people who are actually interested in harvesting their own food, interested in growing their own food, interested in moving from a 5,000 square foot house into an 800 square foot house. And going, yeah, I don't need to show my friends I live in a huge house and then have 2 jobs to pay for the mortgage for it. It just doesn't make sense. These patterns of insanity are what we're actually waking up to. And I think the challenge, if we speak about men, so often we feel like we're victims of something that we don't know. Like, God, there's just so many of us killing ourselves. It must be this magical force that's out there depressing us and hurting us. No, our actual daily patterns and habits are what are creating it. Oh, the whole country's overweight. It must be this magical thing in the water.
It's the standard American diet.
Standard American diet.
Prescribed to us.
Yeah, literally prescribed to us. So do we go default on that, or do we actually look at examples of people who are thriving? And even especially, I'll say, people who are thriving and aren't trying to sell us something specific. Just go, wow, you live really well. Tell me what you do. Okay, you live really healthy. Tell me how you live. You seem to have a really good grasp on life. What is it that you're doing that I can do? There's so much shit that's free. Like, meditation is free. Burpees are free. Journaling is free. Like, holy, you just need a little bit of time. And I get it. People have kids. You got a half hour. You got to go to bed a half an hour early, take the TV out of your room, unplug the internet at 9 p.m. One of the things I loved, I lived in a ashram for a while. And both this and another place that I went to, they would cut the internet during meals. And they wouldn't turn it on until 9 a.m. And then they'd turn it off at 8 p.m.
Nice.
And for the first day, I hated it. I was like, you fuckers, you have no idea how important I am and what I need to do on social media. And on day 2, it was like, wow, look at all these humans to talk to. Like, actual flesh and blood people, instead of the people who I'm writing novels to on my phone with my thumbs. And holy shit, we're talking over meals. Wow, that's doable.
Yeah, it's quite funny. You're talking about, tiny houses and like, I have a friend who's trying to buy a house at the moment, and he goes, the amount of real estate agents that look at me funny when I say I don't want a low maintenance property, I want a garden and trees and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, I've tried to grow some bloody food here. Our soil's dry and deprived. And I was like, and I'm having a constant battle with this sort of weed called oxalis. And then on Sunday I was ripping out this creeper as well. And yeah, it's just like, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And on the TV thing, as someone who hasn't owned a TV for sort of 4.5 years, like we still get pulled into the laptop, YouTube or Netflix or whatever. But it's not until you go back to a TV household and the advertising, and even with YouTube, you go, oh, what the hell? Bloody ads come on.
Yeah.
Then you just go, whoa, the brain, and even the radio is like, the brainwashing is coming at you hot and fast. I don't know if you're a fan or know of Elliot Holmes, but that's one of the things he says. What are you brainwashing yourself with? And yeah, the TV's a big one.
Yeah, I think we're at a place now, Ryan, where we have the opportunity to design the information that we take in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's going to be marketing that infiltrates us. If you watch a YouTube video, something may pop up. But like, we get to choose who we follow on social media. We get to choose who we unfollow on social media.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose whether we watch television or not. Do I have a Netflix account? Absolutely. Are there shows that I love to watch on Netflix? Absolutely. Are there movies that I love to watch? Absolutely. But I've curated it to a point where it's now specific. Mm-hmm. And it's conscious, as opposed to coming home and just throwing Netflix on so I have something talking to me in the background, or just going, well, I don't know what to do right now, so I'll just watch Netflix. It's okay to have it, but again, we've let the tools take over as opposed to using them. One of my first bosses was this brilliant guy named Gavin de Becker. He wrote the book, The Gift of Fear. And he used to describe your mind, like when he's teaching me about meditation, it's like your mind's like a chainsaw. It's amazing to have a chainsaw when you need to cut down trees. But when you don't need to cut down trees, it really sucks to have a fucking chainsaw running in the background of your life. I take that analogy and now put it on top of just about everything, right? Like social media is a chainsaw. Beautiful. Television is a chainsaw. All of these things are tools that I can use. But if they start running the shop, then I'm fucked. I'm out of control. It's back to me to go, okay, wait a minute. And we even see this. We have social media detoxes, right? I know people that leave social media for a month, and I work on social media, so I get it. It's like a big part of my business is being there and being accountable and talking to people. But yet, so I know that specifically I have to know that I'm engaging in something that's potentially unhealthy. Just like a guy a bartender was like, yeah, I kind of got a drink because, I'm not going back to acupuncture patients. Patrons will buy me drinks. Like, okay, cool. Then you need to take a week off every couple months and get out of the bar. Or you need to just drink water, tell people like, no, I'm doing a fast or I'm on antibiotics or something, so that you don't get this just perpetual cycle of like, oh shit, it's been 4 years since I haven't stopped and taken a breath.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That to me is plugging into the matrix. That's plugging into the collective unconscious. The collective insanity is just to wake up 5 years from now and go, I have no idea. I have no idea what happened. I wasn't here for any of it.
Absolutely. Was it, mate? So speaking of those 34 burpees, they're calling my name. Yeah. Where do people find you? As you're just saying about you work on social media, where do people find you? How do they get their hands on the book? And you've also got a podcast yourself, is that right?
Yeah, it's fledgling. I was doing it just live, as in like with a live audience. Mm-hmm. So I just invite like 40 people onto a Zoom call and then interview someone. But it is UnCivilised, the UnCivilised podcast. You can find me at Traver Boehm. That's TraverBoehm on Instagram. And then the book, if you go to manuncivilized.com/the book. And I have a bunch of articles on Man Uncivilized. I have workshops. I'm doing a year-long tour. I'm going to be in Australia in October. So I'd love for people to come find me anywhere in the world that I'm speaking. I'm going to be in Europe. My goal for the year is to touch and actual shake hands with and have conversations with as many men as I possibly can, and women per se, because they're also influencing men, but people, right? Like I leave Costa Rica in a week and I go do the West Coast of California, and then go to Salt Lake City, and then go to New York. And I'm out and about this year, really trying to speak to people, Ryan, to say, hey, there's a different way. And if all you do is pick the book up, like you said, and read it in a week, something will shift. I wake up every morning to emails from guys going, I've never heard it this way. I heard it 100 times before, but I never heard it this way. Thank you for that. Or I've just tried this one thing and it's shifting. It's like just plant the seed of momentum. That's what the book is. It's this tiny seed of momentum, and then fucking run with it. If you want to know something nuts, I have guys all over the world starting book clubs around it. Like, hey, me and my 5 friends get together, we read a chapter and we talk about it because guys need to be talking. I'm like, yes, guys need to be talking. Guys, we're the ones that need to come in and go, all right, we're killing ourselves 8 out of 10. Let's put a stop to that. We're dying 10 years sooner than women are. Let's put a fucking stop to that. Let's take all of this energy and intelligence and action and put it towards saving our own damn lives and the planet.
Awesome. So everybody can just find your links in the show notes. It's the easiest spot. Mate, what I usually get people to leave us with is, if it's as simple as a quote, leave us with a quote, but usually sort of a way that you think about your life and something that hasn't ever done you wrong, or something that keeps sort of showing up in your life. You know, what's the thought that you'd leave us with around that?
It's a little arrogant, but every once in a while, it's okay to stop and realize that everybody else is wrong and you're right. Especially if you're living outside the box.
That's awesome.
Right? Especially if you're living outside the box and people that you love and people that see you go, wow, that's actually crazy, this thing you're doing. You shouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to go shoot your own food? Are you sure you want to go do 34 burpees a day? You sure you want to start your own business? I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. I've had a host of people in my life say, what you're doing isn't a good idea. And I go, thank you. You're welcome to be wrong. I'm welcome to be right.
I love it, mate. So I'm a little bit concerned that I'm going to be watched now after this conversation. We had the little glitch. We've talked about the Matrix a lot, but yeah, no, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Traver.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
And yeah, anyone that's we have quite a few people listening in Aussie. If you're around, do you know what cities you're going to in Aussie?
Not yet. I'm putting it together. It'll be the month of October. I'll be there.
Awesome. Yeah. If you're near Traver, head along and shake his hand and
please.
Yeah, tell him I sent you. Awesome. Thank you so much, mate.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheers, guys.